Hi, Bernie. This is Vicki Rellis, right here.
Yep. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I know it was a meeting. You have another meeting back to back, so we appreciate your time.
Certainly.
Does everybody want to introduce themselves, or how do we want to start this off? This is our committee. Some people are select board members, and some people are townspeople that have had various and sundry duties in the town. George Fisk has had the TA position twice, so he brings to the table quite a bit of experience. So we have Jeff Waldron, who is on a select board. Myself, I am on the personnel board, and then I'm chair of this board. Courtney Eck is on conservation committee. Is that correct, Courtney? And Bill is one of the people from the town that volunteered nicely to help us get an outside perspective, as did Carol. Paul Durenzis is on the Sherborn Select Board as well. I told you a little bit about George Fisk. Mary Wolf is the town moderator, and she's also been on the advisory board and is very involved with the town. Diane Morse is the interim town administrator. And Eric Johnson, who just joined us, is on the select board as well.
Great.
So Bernie, George is going to ask you some questions, and then I guess from those questions we'll write them down. So he'll try to get this going as fast as we can for you.
Sure.
Good. Bernie, thanks very much. And in the interest of time, I'm going to give you a quick summary and then we'll run through questions. But essentially, we want to offer you the opportunity to make any opening statement or comments. And then we'll have a period of questions. You're answering questions. And at the end, you may very well have questions for us, which we certainly want to. And then an opportunity to just a closing statement you might want to make. So sure. I'm through the questions quickly, but we can go back just to give you a flavor. We're looking for experience searches that you've conducted for town administrators in smaller towns such as Sherborn. We'd like to hear a bit about the search process that you would suggest be followed. And then we'd like to hear a bit about strategies to deal with tight candidate pool, which we all recognize we have. And then a projected duration of the search itself. So let's begin with your experience with searches that you've had for small towns.
Sure. I guess the best way to explain it is maybe to start with is that my background is in municipal government. As Paul will tell you, I've known Paul for some time now. I've been in municipal government for about 30 years. I was a manager for about 30 years, a town manager of Chelmsford, city manager of Lowell. In 2014, I started this business basically to keep my hand in the realm of municipal government, expecting to be doing a variety of different projects. But what's really taken off is it sort of addresses the issue of the tight market. Is the municipal management recruiting. We've now completed, I believe it's about 75 recruitments over the span of from 2015 to today. And they've ranged in size. We're currently working with the town of Brookline, which is 70,000 people. But we've also worked with smaller towns like Plimpton, which hired us to do a town administrator search, but they're now using us to do a police chief search. The little town of Beckett out in the Berkshires. We just completed a project for Sterling and Lancaster. We're currently working with West Boylston. Avon is another small town that we've done. Dighton, Swansea. So we've done a number of small towns, and we've also done, the larger communities of 20, 30, 40,000 person communities as well. So that's been our background. In terms of our approach, and Vicki and I talked a little bit about this. We have sort of a system, a process, if you will. When we come into a community to assist with the town administrator search, we usually start right at the beginning in terms of trying to get a handle on what the needs of the community are, what you're looking for, the type of candidate, what would represent the ideal candidate for the town of Sherborn. We then generate a position profile. We go out, we recruit, we work with the screening committee, in evaluating the candidates that we pull in. We manage the collection of the resumes and bring them to the screening committee. And again, work with them on evaluating those, going through the interview process. Then the screening committee ultimately makes a decision of who to move on to the select board. But we do background checks on those people to provide as much information as possible to the select board so that they can fully understand the candidates. In this particular case, again, I indicated to Vicky, we're out straight right now, but we would be willing certainly to provide some level of service to the town of Sherborn in terms of helping you distribute your posting, try to attract candidates for you. We have a database of literally hundreds of potential candidates out there that we would contact on your behalf. We would work with you in evaluating those candidates that decide to apply, giving you the background and the strengths and weaknesses of each one of those candidates that applies. Work with you in terms of developing an interview strategy so that you can fully understand the skills that each one of the candidates, the attributes each one of the candidates would bring forward. And then based upon that, we would be able to do some background checks for you in terms of the experiences they have and the skills that they would bring to the job. Somewhat of a more limited scope than what we normally do, but we would be willing to work with you along those lines. And I'm happy just tonight to sort of give you my perspective on a whole slew of issues, as long as I finish up by about 10 minutes of 7. So if whether you decide to use us or not, I'd be happy to give you my sense of the marketplace and what you should be looking for.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you, Bernie.
Sure.
How do you feel about the tight candidate pool?
Well, I think that it is a very tight pool right now. Almost probably 2/3 or thereabouts of the communities in Massachusetts have turned over in the last 5 years. So it's really a staggering, change in the overall industry. I think that in a case like Sherborn, what you're going to be looking for is probably, I would say, the potential for looking at candidates that are a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily lock myself into looking for someone who's been a town administrator. I might look to someone who's been a department head within a community, a finance director, a public works director, a planning director, something of that sort. Perhaps an assistant that's out there. The problem is that many communities don't have assistants, or the assistants aren't necessarily interested in moving into the top position in some cases. So, but I would look at, I wouldn't lock myself into just hiring someone who's been a town administrator. It's funny, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, when many Massachusetts municipalities didn't have administrators or managers, and communities recognized the need for some type of professionalization, and they went out and they hired people from those backgrounds. The positions have become very much institutionalized now, and people realize the value that they bring to a community. But along with that has come sort of an insistence in many communities that they'll only hire someone who's been a town administrator. And I think that in this current market, that becomes very difficult. And also, I don't think it is absolutely necessary for the types of projects the types of skills that you would need in the town of Sherborn.
Do I understand that you think that the candidate pool is so well? It sounds as though you're pretty busy. Your firm is pretty busy these days looking for. Are you suggesting that the search that you would do for us might not be to the extent that we might otherwise see if the if you weren't quite as busy a person, or there are more people in the candidate pool?
Well, I think, again, I like to be as helpful as I can to communities. And we have, we do currently have a number of searches underway for a variety of positions across the Commonwealth, as well as some public management work that we're doing, studies that we're doing. Our normal search process would be a little bit different than what I'm proposing we would do for you now, I guess is the easiest way to say it.
All right. Could you elaborate a little bit more on how you see it being versus the way you ordinarily would do it?
Well, ordinarily, as I say, what we would do is we'd come in and we would work with, we'd be meeting with the selectmen, meet with the department heads, or perhaps some of the other stakeholders, and we would come in and generate that position profile, that position statement. If you go to our website, you'll see in the current opportunities, for instance, you'll see the position profile that we've put together for, I think the one that's up there probably right now is probably still Watertown. But we would come in, we develop that position profile. We think that process itself is useful for the town. You had a town administrator just leave that I believe was with you for about 4 or 5 years. The circumstances have changed certainly since when he was hired. Your needs have changed. You're looking for a different person. So you're looking for a different skill set. We would help you. Normally what we would do is, if we came in, is we would help you identify what that skill set looks like, what those attributes would be. And again, I'm happy to sort of do some of that with you, particularly if we can do it like this, over Zoom, and set up meetings of this sort to sort of work with you, providing whatever technical assistance we could. We would then take that profile, we would go out, we'd post the ads everywhere, we would distribute the posting through our database, through our network, to try to pull in candidates for you. Under the scope that I'm describing that we would do for you now is, we would go out and we would certainly do that recruiting for you. We would try to get you candidates, and we would work hand in hand with you to build a candidate pool. But we wouldn't do the preliminary work at the beginning of the process. We would let you decide what you need. We wouldn't necessarily do that for you. So that would be one of the big changes that we would make. We would also, under the scenario that I'm sort of laying out here, I wouldn't anticipate that we would necessarily be sitting in on the interviews with you, or sitting in on the selectmen interviews. Now, maybe we can modify that as we go along, but right now I just don't see that as possible.
Well, based upon that scenario, do you have a sense of what you think the length of time, the duration of the search would take us?
Yeah, pretty much a rule of thumb that we use is a search generally takes about 14 weeks. The preliminary work takes about 3 weeks. Then you have the posting and the recruiting that takes about 4. And then just the process of you looking at the resumes, you interviewing some number of those candidates, and then passing those on to the selectmen. That would take up the remaining 7 weeks or so that you'd be looking at. But we generally say, if we were giving you a timeline, I would give you a 14-week timeline in all likelihood.
All right. I don't know if others have any particular questions they want to offer. I do want to offer you the opportunity, if you have some specific questions, we would attempt to answer any of that.
Yeah, I don't think I have any real questions. Again, I know that what I'm putting out there is different than if this were another time, I might be here, putting on a big presentation to you, and what we could do for you. I think we could be a resource. What I'm saying is that in order to help you out, and I don't know how you feel about my making it sound that way, that we're helping you out, but whatever help we could give to the town of Sherborn to move this process along, we would certainly be willing and be happy to do that. But we do have some constraints on our side at this point in time. I have a sort of a soft spot in my heart for Sherborn. I grew up in the neighboring town of Ashland and had friends over there in Sherborn through the years. So the idea of coming back and helping out is certainly something that's attractive, but I don't have the manpower right now to put in there full bore.
Thank you for that. I did have a quick question for you before you leave.
Sure.
This is Vicky. So if the pool is really tight and we're looking at potential interviews and we don't see anybody that really fits, do you think it's worthwhile to wait, or is it going to be like this for a while?
Well, it seems like it's going to be like this for a while. I don't see where it's changing that dramatically.
Okay.
And the strange thing is what's happening too is that there are managers, there are younger managers who, and I use the term interchangeably with administrators, who are simply walking away from the business.
Oh,
They're just I don't know whether it's COVID or what the case may be. The weight of social media and everything else, or what it is. But we have people that should be in the prime of their careers to move up, and they're just walking away completely.
Well, that's not good. Okay, and on that note,
I think you have one more. I think one more question. I think Mary has a question.
Oh, Mary, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
Yes, I actually have a double question there. This is very specific. In what you're offering, who would be writing the ad that would be distributed? Would that be you, or would that be us? And to whom would the resumes be directed? Would they be directed to you, or would they be directed to us?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I actually had that here as a note to myself as to who was going to collect the resumes. We'd be happy to collect the resumes. That gives people a comfort level that it's going to a location in which confidentiality is assured. No knock on any community, but we say this everywhere, that if it goes to a town hall, word starts to spread. So we'd be happy to collect those for you. In terms of the ads, we're happy to put an ad together. We would get you an ad and give you let you comment on it. Whatever you wanted to be in the ad, we would put there.
Thank you.
But the thing is, because we've done so many of these, we would simply, we can draw upon our resources, our library of ads and postings and everything, and get that out there. And we have that database of potential candidates that we can reach out to.
Oh, if you can make it quick, that would be great. Thanks, Mary.
Paul?
I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about this database. So when you have a opening in a community and let's say 20 or 30 people apply for it, you end up with only one person being hired, and you've got 29 that were looking for a job and weren't selected in that community, but they would be available for Sherborn. Wouldn't that be the case?
That's correct.
So how many people do you think you have in your database? Is that a big number or a small? How many people are looking for a job is what I'm really asking for. But how many do you have? Do you know that you can reach out to of the people who are looking for a job?
Yeah, well, we get. I would say that we have a. Let's put it this way: when we do a position, we just did the. We currently have the town of Sturbridge up there, so that's another one for you that you can look at on our website. When we did the town of Sturbridge, we advertised a position at the MMA and the International City and County Management Association, the ICMA. And then we sent out an email blast to about 450 people that are an accumulation of all the members of the Managers Association here in the state, as well as our own pool of people who have applied in the past for jobs that we would then send that posting out to. And then we would then focus in on specific candidates that we know would be, we think would be a good fit for a community. So we would then follow up with probably 20 or 30 calls or emails to specific individuals that to try to encourage them to apply.
Thanks.
Thank you for clarifying that. I want you to get to your meeting on time. We really appreciate you fitting us in and you
Sure.
did a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take any more questions, Ricky, that you want to send my way or
Okay.
whatever. I'm just feel free. All right.
All right. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I think our next one comes on at
7:15.
15.
Mhm.
So what I will ask is, what's the overall feeling that people get? I know that he's very busy, but I guess I will start with Bill. And Bill and Carol, I apologize. I did not mention the boards you were on. I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
I had Bill, I had no idea you were on the assessors. I don't even know why that happened. So next introduction, I will say something.
Don't worry.
All right. Okay. Bill, would you like to give a few words about your first feeling about this?
I mean, obviously, there's got to be some concern about when he admits up front that he's out straight and will not be able to give us as much time as somebody else might have. On the other hand, clearly, this is somebody who plays in this field and has a database and resources that are exactly what we would like. One of the questions we didn't ask, and I don't know if we are not supposed to ask it tonight at all, but if he's, what would the cost be? I assume if he's not doing as full service as one of the other firms, the cost would be less. Is that an issue? I don't think we should be trying to save money. We should be trying to hire the best consultant, but that's still an issue.
Yeah, I think it would cost less. I don't know how much less, but it would definitely cost less. Because we've had another firm give us kind of a ballpark figure, and it was a lot less than what normally would be because it was a shortened scope as well.
I think I hope he's right with 14 weeks. That would be nice.
Yeah, I think generally it just depends on what we do and how quickly things go through. But do you remember, Eric, how long we took for it was almost 2 months, 3 months, 3 months for a police search, right, Chief?
Oh, at least. At least. I mean, from the very beginning of it, it was quite a bit more than that, I think. It took us like 3 months to pick a consultant. And I mean, that's a little hyperbole.
No, it
Maybe
didn't.
it
It didn't take us that long.
took us at least 2 months to pick a consultant. It did. Yeah, by the time I sat down, I remember it took us like 2 separate meetings, meeting every
Yeah,
other
we
week.
had to go
Just
through
like
everything.
review a
We asked-
scope and everything else like that.
Yeah, we asked for more info.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably just under 6 months. What do you think, Jeff? By the time we actually decided who to go with, then he had to give a 60-day notice and blah, 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 blah. You're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
Can't hear you, Jeff.
Jeff muted.
We had the top 2 candidates pull out at the end too, so we then had to
Right,
circle
right,
back
right.
and sort of reconsider 3 and 4. So
Yeah.
I would say 5 months anyway,
Yeah,
including picking a consultant. It really did take quite a while to get.
yeah. So if
Get a
we shorten the consultant part of it,
Yeah.
Yep.
maybe 3 months. So 12, yeah, so 14 weeks might be right, 14 to 20.
Yep.
Okay, George, what was your first?
Yeah, I was thinking I sensed that it was 14 weeks after we did the
A lot
work.
of work. Right.
Yeah, I think it's 14 weeks after we're done with the preliminary. A question I have, obviously they're busy. I'm guessing the other firms are busy too. I didn't get a sense that he was, really chomping at the bit to have us as a client. I think it just didn't come across that way to me at all. What I wonder is when somebody's out there searching for a job, are they going to use just one of these firms to find the job, or are they going to put their name out with other search firms?
Other firm.
So,
No.
so not as if
They're not a retained search
no,
firm. They're a
yeah.
contingent
Yeah.
search firm.
Yeah,
Right.
so they actually don't he says he has a date, but they don't act, someone who's looking for a job doesn't really file with them. They apply for a job like Watertown. Now now that company has that resume and might know about that poll, but they don't really have like a stack of clients. You apply to jobs as they pop up, as they make the advertisements. And then that's how that company kind of knows.
Yep. So I don't know that I'd say much more until I've heard from the other two firms.
Okay. Thank you. Carol?
I wanted to raise a concern to make sure that we put in the question, which I have in my box, question 6, as I was making notes on my form here, of the timeline, and as Mary asked about the weeks of the work and so on. I join in George's concern in terms of the amount of time this particular firm might have to help us with the preliminary work, because we don't want to stretch out the preliminary work to 3, 4, or 5 weeks of the work that we're doing before we start the first 14 to 20 week process. So let's hear if the other firms have that preliminary help, as Bernie was saying. He kept using the word help and so on as I was taking notes. They're thinking of assisting us from the background, not necessarily doing the work that we might need in the forefront. I don't know. You all went through the other searches. You know much better than I do.
Well, that's exactly what he was saying. Assuming that we would do a lot of the information gathering, find out what kind of position it is, the type of person we want. So, we'd have to be comfortable with doing all of that.
That's correct.
Paul?
Well, I wanted to make 2 comments. One was that when I looked at the thing you sent me about community paradigm, I was completely.
Sorry, I have an
Well-
emergency call I have to deal with. You guys go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're the vice chair, you can take over.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I was completely amazed and in awe of the list of names that they have as their colleagues. They listed some of the top managers, the most highly respected managers, as being on their team. People that wow, that's the only thing I could say is wow. They have really good talent, who really know their jobs, long-term managers, long-term town administrators, successful at what they do. So they really know the position. And the other thing I would say is what I said before. I've worked with Bernie and I've worked with some of the others now that I know that are on his team. So I think if we needed to get more attention, I could probably help on that regard in dealing with them.
So Mary, do you want to go?
Sure. So I was concerned about, I'll put my hand down here, so.
I can do it for you, don't worry.
Okay. So I was concerned about a couple of things. One, which everybody has noted so far, that they would be sort of, we'd be at the bottom of their list, I think, that they are very busy. He's kind of saying they're very busy. I thought he was a little, not evasive, but I thought he didn't sort of answer some of the questions until we, sort of came back around a couple of times. I also was wondering, I had another question here now. Oh yeah, we had this, and maybe this is a question for Vicky. I have another sheet here, questions for consultant meeting.
Yeah.
And I thought some of those questions on there were quite good.
Me
And
too.
they don't appear in this grid. And so now
I
my
don't think you have the
question is-
latest grid. I put the questions in the grid, but it wasn't the original grid. Bill and Vicky developed questions and then I populated in the grid and she resent the grid out. So I'm not
Okay,
sure if everyone got it.
The grid that I have doesn't have the questions that I guess you guys made
Yeah,
up.
you don't have the latest one. I guess George doesn't sound like George, because that was one of my concerns is we didn't ask those questions.
Right, so now my question is,
Are you interviewing, who's interviewing MRI?
I am,
Well, let me try to send you the latest grid.
okay.
Is that all right?
But my question is sort of,
Yeah.
larger than that, which is not having asked those questions initially of
Yeah.
the first person, is it fair to ask them of the other two? And on the other, and you might say, well, no, it's not fair to do that because the first person didn't have the option to answer, but the first person terminated the interview quite early as well. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't consider this firm qualified in any way, to be honest with you. I hear.
Yeah,
I
sort of-
disagree completely. He doesn't even, he said David was here 4 to 5 years. He
5
doesn't
years,
know.
right.
He's
David was
here
here like-
11 years.
I
So
was
he
gonna
doesn't
say
even know
9 to 11,
how long
yeah.
the candidate's been here. I wouldn't hire this firm in a million years, even if they had time, in my view. They may be qualified as town managers, but I'm not sure they are as a search firm. I would consider them for a minute.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna send you Eric's got a question. I'm gonna send you what I think are the questions you need for the next one.
Okay,
So I'll be here, but I'm gonna go do the email real quick. Go ahead,
okay,
Eric.
and then I'll have to pop off to go pick it up.
Oh, well, you can do it from your screen, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I can, but,
All right, so I'm gonna disappear from view while I email. Hang on.
I was just gonna comment that it sounded like they were gently bowing out, to be honest with you. I mean, being professionals, maybe they showed up because they had to or not because they're asked to and they didn't want to make a no-show or anything. It sounded like they're just gently bowing out, and qualifications, we can go back and forth at it. But to me, the fact that they said they didn't have the time to sit in on the interviews, that's kind of the stopper right there. And maybe they knew that, maybe frankly, this is the way to go through the motions, say, yes, we applied, we did whatever, we want to be a good consultant and go to the client's needs. But ultimately, even when they offered to say, hey, if we're not involved, we'll give you free services, it's a way to kind of save grace. To me, it sounded like they're bowing out. I think the focus should be on the next two. I think that's.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Low man.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the same.
Courtney,
thing.
go ahead, Courtney.
I agree with what's been said before. They don't want our business. They're too busy and they can't provide the kind of services that we're looking for.
I mean, it's too bad because like Paul said, the data, who they have and who they've put in place are, they've done incredible job places, but it's a busy time, so they can't spread themselves too thin.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of how much do we want to take on ourselves to do. So one of the reasons I put together, that expectations of the responsibility sheet is part of it is to understand the type of person that, we're looking for, and can they do all of this? And is this really what we want? So we do have to think about these things because it's going to come up, whether we do it or we have somebody else do it. Eric?
I'm sorry, there was a second part thing I wanted to say, just to address, I think Mary had said something earlier, which is a good question, is can we, they couldn't sit around for the full suite of questions, should we ask a full suite for the next two? And I think yes, because it was their choice to step off the call. For all intents and purposes, they've kind of disqualified themselves. It's kind of been gently stepping out of the competition here. And I think we should ask a full suite of questions because the next two is really kind of the pool that's left. So that's my response to Mary.
And Mary, I didn't see your moderator one, so I sent it to your Gmail email address.
Right, okay. I'll pick it up in a minute. I'll just toss this out before I go to get it. One of the things I wondered about, and this would be, as a result of what they had to say, but I think it applies across the board. The more we take on, it is my feeling that the longer it's going to take us. And so I feel that that's something to consider. That's one reason I asked about where the resume is going and, who's going to do that initial screening and so forth, because we're, highly talented group of people. Okay, we'll pay ourselves a compliment, but we're not recruiters,
No.
and I just think that the more
They
we have
weren't
to
even going
do.
to sit in on the interviews, Mary. That's what struck me. He said, we're not even going to sit in on the interviews. It was unacceptable.
Yeah. I mean, but besides that, it also, even if we thought that was acceptable, it lengthens the time, and I'm sort of, against
I
that.
agree.
I'll
I
be
agree.
right back.
Oh, remind me, what time does the next one come on? Oh, I got the agenda here.
7:15,
7:15.
MRI at 7:15.
Okay.
And
Do
he's
we
here,
all need?
he's here already in the waiting room.
Mary is
Jeff?
going to read the questions for this.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that because we may not have the new questions or the added questions.
The new questions are what?
I don't think they got the form. They didn't, you know how I took
They
your
didn't get the
questions?
form with the 9 boxes?
Yes, but I sent out a draft one, and then Vicky and Bill came up with really good questions. So I populated the form with those questions. I
Oh,
don't
you
know.
did? Oh, geez.
Yeah, I sent it to you. I sent it to you a week ago.
I know
But
you
that's
sent
okay.
it, but I pulled off the wrong one myself.
Oh, all right. Yeah, it has all your 9 questions that you and Bill wrote. That's
I
why
was
I didn't know.
wondering why you didn't, yeah. Did I send it to everybody?
I'm not
No.
sure. I thought you did. But I just emailed. Do you want me to send it to you? Do you have it? I just emailed it to Mary.
I know you sent it, but so I didn't send it to everybody. I'm sorry. I just
But
had a lot of stuff.
I have a,
You're going to do the 3rd interview, right?
Yes,
So do you want me to send it to you, or do you have it?
let me just take a look real quick. Yeah, see, this is the one I have here.
It has the questions you and Bill created.
Does everybody else but me have that?
I have it now.
I have a version of it, but, and the questions are listed, but question 5, 6, and 7
Oh, I got it.
are not
George,
correct.
No, that's the draft.
George, I'll send this to you.
Okay.
And
Sorry, that was my fault.
can you send it on, and I don't need it right this minute, but for the minutes, just so I have the questions as posed.
Yeah, and I'll be using those questions to talk to the next firm, and then I assume, who is doing the 3rd one?
I am.
Vicky.
Okay, that you'll use those with the 3rd one as well. And so people who don't have it will hear me ask the questions, and so you
Yes.
can also jot them down.
Thank you.
I would assume if they're there, we could, unless somebody has anything else to comment on, that we could begin, couldn't we?
Yeah,
Wait a
they're-
minute, I just, yeah.
George, the question list that I sent you is the additional questions that he put in this box, the boxes.
Yeah,
So you,
okay.
the list that you
Yeah.
have has all
Yeah.
the questions that Bill and I did. Yeah.
Yeah, we told them 7:15. It's only 7:12. We're okay.
Yeah. I just want to read through these questions if
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got 2 minutes.
Yeah, you're fine, George, because they're all in this. It's just a grid versus the paper that has them listed.
Yeah, I just did it so you have a place to take
Yeah,
notes.
so everybody has the questions, they just don't have the grid.
Nice.
Because I was going by the questions. Yeah,
I was going by the grid.
okay. Well, they're one and the same.
They're the same.
This just has more boxes room to write in.
I just created a generic grid with some sample questions. Bill and Vicky created the good questions.
No, the grid's a good idea. It keeps things organized.
Yeah.
We only have 3 people. All right.
Well, the Buzz and the Bob Mercer are here now.
Okay,
So
I'm
are we
ready.
ready?
we are.
You good, Vicky?
Yes.
All right.
So
I'll let-
I'm sorry, is it just the 2 people? Alan Gould is not joining them, is that right?
Alan is not going to be the person who's doing the search. He's the firm, he's the principal in the firm. And these guys would be the people who we would be working with.
Yes.
You also,
okay,
you
good.
also all got what I sent you today also, just because they're to redo all of their information,
Yeah,
the services that they do for the public sector recruitment
Thank you.
and what their assistance package is,
right.
which
They
is,
spell it out pretty clearly what
yeah,
they're
they do. Okay,
doing.
Comprehensive. All right, so I'll let him in now.
yes.
You ready?
Mhm. Good evening.
Hi.
Bob, you're on mute, sorry. Hi, Buzz.
Am I okay?
Hello?
Yes, perfect.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on with us.
How are you?
We're doing very well.
Good.
I think everybody's
Excellent.
getting used to these Zoom meetings, so it's going to be hard to pull people into real meetings.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like,
It
"No, I'll
is.
do Zoom. I can stay home and do Zoom." I'm Vicki Rellis. I'm chair of the committee, and joining me tonight is the rest of the committee. Jeff Waldron is he's on the select board, but he's vice chair of this committee as well. Also joining us are Eric Johnson, who is on the select board. We have Paul Dorenzis, who's on the select board. George Fisk, who has had the position of TA for the town of Sherborn for a couple of times over the last few years. Bill Seymour is on with us, and he is a member of on the board of the assessors, and he's also in the town of Sherborn. And Carol D'Souza is on many boards as well, and also a newbie to the town of Sherborn, and we're great to have her. And finally, we have Mary Wolf. I won't say finally, but she's a tremendous contributor to our government here because she does a lot of work. Her job now is moderator. She's been on the advisory board, and she watches over everybody. And also we have Courtney Eck, who is on a conservation committee, conservation board. And I think I got everybody. Did I? Okay. Did I miss anyone? No. The way we're going to handle this evening is Mary is going to be posing the questions to you, and you can answer them, both of you together, one at a time. That's fine. And she will give you some time for a little opening summary. We all received your information, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So with further ado, I will let Mary begin.
Okay, Bob and Buzz, it's nice to meet you sort of in person after.
Yeah, you've
communicating
kept
over
us in a loop, Mary.
email. I was a little bit of a nag, maybe reminding you over and over again. So anyway, if you would like to make an opening statement, I mean, people have received the documentation that you've sent, and we've read through it. But if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourselves or whatever.
Yeah, I think we would like that, Mary. And first and foremost, my name's Bob Mercier. My partner is Buzz, and we're both going to introduce ourselves individually. Buzz and I, just for a little bit of background, you've probably seen it, but we've both been 30, 35-year public managers for most of our careers. Buzz is more dedicated than I was because I took a break and went 6 years to be the president of a large regional chamber of commerce. So I got a very good perspective on the business side of working with local government by being the president of a chamber. And that was along Route 128 in the Burlington area. So that gave me a good perspective. I've been with MRI since 2013. I retired out of Burlington in 2012. That was my primary focus as a manager. As an administrator. It's a strong administrator created via charter or statute, state statute. But I was a strong manager in the town of Billerica, which has a full charter and is a very strong charter in the Commonwealth. Also had some temporary gigs at Boxborough, Massachusetts, which is a small town, pretty similar to what you guys are, actually. It's about 4,000 or 5,000 people. And I served as an interim in Wayland, Massachusetts, believe this, after I retired, which I didn't think I was going to do, but I did. And that's where I met Alan. And Alan was doing the search for Wayland. at the time, and he asked me if I wanted to come on board, and the rest is history. Buzz, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I'm Buzz Stapchinsky. I've got about 40 years in municipal service. Started in Fairfax County, Virginia in the early 70s, worked for the Commonwealth for a few years. And then I was town manager in Wilmington, Wilmington, Mass, almost 10 years. And then Andover, Massachusetts for 25 years. And then when I retired from a full-time job, I jumped into another full-time job working with Alan Gould and Bob. The way the company's set up, the way MRI is set up, Bob and I handle the searches in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Alan and his team take care of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And so we've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years. And in the course of that time, I've done, actually during COVID, a number of communities about your size: Hadley, Massachusetts, Georgetown, Massachusetts this spring, and also this spring, early summer, Boxford. And we're concluding a couple of other projects of similar sized communities. So, our message to you is we're familiar with communities about your size and that are rural, semi-rural, trying to preserve as hard as they can the suburban and rural agricultural character of the community. One small fact, if you don't know, Hadley, Massachusetts is the asparagus capital of the world, and I can attest to it. They have great asparagus there, right in the middle of the Connecticut River Valley. So happy to answer any questions that you may have, folks.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mary, I'll just follow up one comment on that, as Buzz suggested. We're currently engaged, and this is something that we can talk through. We're currently engaged in 2 other communities right now, Carver, Massachusetts, and Somerset, Massachusetts. Carver, just picking on what Buzz said, is a community that's going through a change. As you probably all know, it's cranberry bogs everywhere. No longer the industry it used to be. And they're going through some substantive changes and a transition that there's the pulling going on internally in the community between people who want to stay exactly as they are and people who say that's not sustainable. So communities like yours, we're pretty familiar with. And as I said, in fact, Buzz, I think today is a deadline for respondents to Carver. So we'll see what we got. But that's an attractive community, and we're not too concerned. And we'll get into it, I'm sure, about the turnout, which you'll note. And if you talk to anybody else, and by the way, full disclosure, we all know Bernie and I were almost partners. I was in Barica, he was in Chelmsford, and then Lowell. So, and we also know the others. So we all know each other. And we just do things a little bit differently, and we can get into that.
Great. So I'm just going to point out that I have an asparagus patch in my yard, and we will be harvesting in May. So there we go. Maybe you can come and help with that. But so this actually, what you've just said plays right into my first question, which is what skills do you see you'd be looking for in someone to lead a municipal government in a small rural town? But I would add to that a rural town that it's not in the western part of the state. It's in Metro West Boston. So we are surrounded by communities and I don't know, an ethos is probably the incorrect term, but a feeling where we are dealing with on a daily basis and affected by not just rural values, but impinging values of other more non-rural towns. So that, we're sort of an amalgam there. And so I'm wondering what you would be looking for in someone to fill sort of both those roles.
Well, just an observation from looking at Sherborn, and I've watched a few of your meetings. Congratulations, you're pretty civil. That doesn't always happen, and we can attest to that. In fact, it doesn't happen sometimes when we're at the meeting, so it makes it a little bit uncomfortable. But no, you're going through similar issues to a lot of other people. You're a little bit different, obviously. You're a well-to-do community, but I'm sure you have that tugging going on internally in your community. What you do not need, and this is just an observation, and Buzz can chime in, you don't need a strong town manager. And the reason I say that is because you're a smaller community that's driven by its volunteers. And if you bring in somebody who's going to want to change the world and do things autocratically, that person's going to fail. That person's going to fail. That's not the way Sherborn governs itself. And you're not unique. We are going through this with a couple of other communities who have stressed to us, and you haven't yet, but I'm sure you know it, who have stressed to us the importance of volunteer government, particularly in a small town. You don't have a lot of full-time staff. I know about your fire department and your call fire department and those type of things. You run as you have run for years on volunteers. Now you need a professional to understand and move the chess pieces around and make sure that things are moving forward. And that's the type of individual. To your question, Mary, you're asking the question. My sense is the type of person you need is somebody who is visible, who can manage a community, but manage its volunteers also. And when I say manage, I don't mean by putting his finger down on them, but soliciting input from those volunteers, whether it's a board or individual or committee or whatever it happens to be, because that's going to help that person succeed in Sherborn. So Buzz, you want to jump in?
All right. Yeah, thank you, Mary. What we will do is we'll start the process actually by asking you what traits and characteristics you'd like to see in your next town administrator. We go through an interview process with all the members of the select board, all the members of on the screening committee, search committee, and then any key, folks in town like yourself, the moderator, the police chief, fire chief, DPW, finance director, whatever key folks. And in some communities, there's some emeritus folks in the community that we speak with. They may not hold a position now, but they may have been a long-standing, member of the select board or planning board or that sort of thing that has a lot of respect in town. So we go through about a week of those interviews on the phone with people. Some interviews last a half hour. In Carver, I got an earful from the moderator. I was on an hour with her, and I got a lot of good information. This woman had, she knew everything about the town and had a lot of good advice. So we asked, what characteristics, traits, personalities do you want? Sometimes we hear more about what they don't want than what they want. And then the second part of the interview is what are the challenges and opportunities for the next 5 to 10 years that the town is facing? Because we use that information then to target our recruitment process. Depending on what's going on in town, there are folks that may be up for that kind of challenge. There's others that say, no, I'm really not interested in that kind of challenge. That's not what I'm looking for at this point in my life or my career. So we ask you, we spend time doing that, and then we put together a profile, and we'll run it by you folks to make sure we got it right. We call it the ideal candidate, and so we ask you for your input on this whole process right from the get-go.
And if I could ask a question, when I spoke with Alan originally, he talked about, what would be a full process. And what he also referred to, he thought we might be more interested in an assistance package. And so what I'm asking you now is what you're describing, is that part of the full process or is that part of the assistance package? I just want to make sure that we're apples to apples here.
We would do most of that, not every little bit of that in the assistance package.
Okay.
The assistance package is perfect for a community that has a very strong search committee, but we would certainly do a lot of those interviews, and we would give them our opinion on the, on the ideal candidate.
Okay.
But yeah, Alan did offer 2 alternatives. We offer those to folks. I don't know if, we're prepared to talk about either one now, but the assistance
Okay.
package is really meant for a community that has a strong committee that just wants us to handle some of the paperwork and some of the background kinds of things, and assist with questions, assist with essays, but we typically take a one step back in that kind of process.
And in connection with that, what would be the timelines of those 2 processes? In other words, using the full package from start to hire, assuming that, we actually find someone we want to hire, but, from start to hire for the full package and for the assistance package.
I would say it's about the same time, 60 to 90 days.
Okay.
Can you do it faster? You can. What you're going to find.
A lot of that's dependent on the involvement of the search committee and how much involvement you want, and whether or not you want us involved in community outreach, or the search committee is going to do that. So there's a lot of variations to it, but it really does depend. And you've got what, 2 and 2, 3, 4, 6 or 9 people here. Trying to get people together for a meeting to approve something, for instance, before going forward, before your search, your either Buzz or I, if we're hired, can go forward, that generally takes some time, either a week or 2 weeks before you can get your people together. You know how that all works.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so in prior placements of town administrators, what approaches by search committees have you found to be most effective and least effective?
I'll talk about one, then I'll let Buzz talk about another one. We recently completed Lakeville, probably about a year ago, and they had a search committee made up of 5 individuals, 1 select board member, and a town accountant, a member of the finance committee, the advisory finance committee, the HR director, because they had one, and 1 other individual. So it was a 5-member committee, which was fairly easy to handle. In other words, those are people that they could get together fairly quickly. And that process, what they wanted us to do is they wanted us to bring them what we'll call semifinalists.
Mm-hmm.
You guys narrow it down, get us 6 or 8 people. You come to that meeting with us, the screening committee, and you tell us about those 8 people or 6 people, whatever we're going to bring. And you talk to us about them. You give us all their materials, and you guys, the search committee, then decides how many they want to interview.
Mm-hmm.
In Lakeville, they decided to interview 5 people, and they were going to recommend 3 to the appointing authority. Well, they ended up recommending 4 to the appointing authority, which was fine. But that process, you asked about that process worked fairly quickly because the screening committee was manageable. And they wanted us to get them to a point certain, which was bring us candidates who you guys know are quality and qualified, and then talk to us about those people. And we'll decide of those, let's say 8 that you bring us, who we want to interview. Now, some committees, not yours, some committees, Acton is a good example. This is all public, so I'm not saying anything.
Right.
For the Acton town manager, they had a search committee of 13 individuals.
Okay.
Try to put together 13 individuals on a Tuesday evening,
Yeah.
so that they can approve a profile that we presented to them. And if you miss 1 or 2, and this was, by the way, pre-COVID, if you miss 1 or 2 and those people aren't there, at times it creates, I never saw it, I never had an opportunity to comment on, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a large committee. The good news there is they had a driver in charge. Buzz, you remember Pat? She
Mhm.
was a driver, and she didn't take anything from her committee. She said, "These are the meeting dates, and if you can't come, maybe you shouldn't be on the committee." So, so it varies. Every town is different. There are some, including the most recent one we just did, which is South Kingstown, Rhode Island. They wanted us to do the whole process. Just bring us 3 or 4 candidates to the it's a town council down there who act as the board, the select board. Bring us the quality candidates you think we should talk to. There was no screening committee or any of that stuff. And that process, Buzz, cross your fingers, is completed tonight. They're signing the contract with the new manager down there. So
At the end of how many weeks?
this was fairly quick.
Quick, okay.
This was fairly quick because they let us
Yeah.
do the whole process
Mhm.
and didn't have a screen. And we're not saying one way or the other is right.
Right.
But to your immediate question on timing, it does vary depending on the structure we have around the search.
Okay.
And if I may, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. The advantage of a screening committee is that you're covered by the open meeting law. That is to say, you can go into executive session to interview semi-finalists, and there's that. That's very helpful because if you go with the communities, we go right to the selectmen with 3 or 4. That's all open, and it just takes a little bit more work to make sure that process goes well, and there's no sort of kerfuffles with that part of the process. But the advantage, to a screening committee is that you do have the open meeting law, and it actually, I think, helps the candidates if they know that it's going to be in confidence, and that their names aren't going to be public, and that's a little tricky for some people. They will be a little bit more comfortable with that kind of process than if it goes right straight to the select board. Although or in the case of, in the select board. So, you folks are going to have a screening committee, a search committee, and so I think it'll it adds a couple more meetings, but I think you will be just as you'll be very happy with the process.
Okay. I want to move along here also because I want to be able to get all our questions in. So what would you say are the key attributes of being a town administrator in a small town like this that the people who are looking for this job, what about the town and the job are they going to be most attracted to? Is it salary? Is it lifestyle? Is it less bureaucracy, ability to implement change, personal, what are they looking for? And I'll sort of tie this in with, you have talked about, you have in your materials that you have a database of people that you look at and referring to them, and your past experience. What's going to sell us?
Well, in terms of you not personally, but you, the community, you're a desirable place.
Why?
We know that. It's one of the reasons we applied. And I mentioned early on when I first started talking, we are a little bit more selective than some groups. We don't apply to every job opening that happens. We apply to communities we want to do.
And we're desirable because not necessarily to you, but to your candidates is what
to the
you're saying.
candidates. Yeah,
Okay.
You're going to be a desirable place. I think I was watching one of your previous meetings, in the search committee meetings, and I think you talked about salary. Look, we don't live in an igloo here. I mean, salary is important to people. Yeah. You've got an energy in the community because you're a small community, and guess what you need? You need somebody who knows a little bit about everything. And that's a real challenge for a town administrator coming in, because as I mentioned earlier, you don't have a lot of support. You don't have a lot of department heads. You don't need a micromanager, but you need somebody who understands the operations locally. And that's exciting. Sometimes, and Buzz and I are probably guilty of it, I was a strong manager, he was a strong manager. Sometimes we lose touch or lost touch. In a small community like yours, you better not lose touch because you're going to fail and the community will be underserved. So you're an attractive place for somebody who has an energy, who wants to grab the ball and run with it, with the direction from the select board, obviously, but grab the ball and run with it. Somebody who's a doer and somebody who can pull people together to get things done. That's an exciting concept for some people, not all. Not all. Some people want to come in and be the top dog, and those aren't the right candidates for you.
Interesting.
Bob, can you
Yeah.
folks, can you see this? Like, is that clear? No?
No,
No,
Not
it's,
really.
okay.
but that may be my eyesight.
I wrote 3 letters on the top line, AAA. What's that? That's your bond
AAA
rating.
bond rating.
Yeah, that's
And
exciting. That's
is
good.
exciting. That's going to
Yeah.
sell the town
Okay.
because
Yeah, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. We didn't know which.
no, that's not it. Look, our candidates are going to know what that is.
Advisory chair is listening in.
All right, well, listen in because that is a sign to the men and women out there that it's a well-run town.
You've been doing things right.
You know, that your finances are in great shape, although I haven't looked at all your reserves. You know, you don't get this easy and you don't keep it easy. And so that's going to be a huge selling point. The other thing I wrote here is I have your bylaw. You got a bylaw that gives the TA authority,
Right.
a role, and a responsibility. You would be surprised how many communities do not have decent bylaws that gives responsibility to their town administrator. It's a little tricky for some men and women to take those jobs because they're coming in kind of on a lick and a prayer. Right. that the board will allow them to do the job that they said that they want them to do. Once they get in there, no, you can't do that. You got to do this. You know, you folks have done a lot of work over the years. This didn't happen overnight, and it's obvious. So that's what's going to sell the town, and is the fact that there's a structure there that gives them a good role, a good foundation upon which to have, you know, to have a good career.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just expand on that just for a minute. When I was the interim in Boxborough's 4,000, 4,500 people, very nice community up off of 495 up in Northern Mass. I was the interim there, and guess what task they gave me? Create a statute for a town administrator, Bob, because we have nothing. They had a job description is what they had. And the town wanted it, the select board wanted something. And I helped write the statute. They passed it, they adopted it, the town adopted it. And the good news about adopting a statute, as you people have, that's not the select board. The town voted for that. That's the governance they want. And that's important, as Buzz alluded. People who are interested in Sherborn are going to look at that and say, that's what the town wants. There's a recent community we just finished. You know what they had? A job description. No authority defined anywhere, just a job description for and the person took the job, and I think is going to be successful because he's the right type of individual. But man, security is tough. Because you know, and Jeff, you're a select board member, and there's another one here. Anyway,
we have a quorum here, actually, Bob. We have 3 select board members.
Okay.
And our warrant, which we're reviewing this coming Saturday, has revisions to this town administrator's authority on our warrant.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because, as you know, look, by the way, part of my sordid past, I was an elected select board member in my town of Tingsboro up here in Massachusetts. And I did the same thing here. I created an initiative to create a town. We had nothing. We had an executive secretary is what we had. And you know, and I know the board members who are sitting here, if you don't have something that the town, quote, has adopted, and you're only reacting to a job description, look, let's be real here. The selectmen can make changes, and the administrators working at the whim of whatever those changes might be. And that makes it difficult for a professional to walk into a position, not yours, because you do have something that the people in town voted for.
So we're getting close here on time, are we not, Vicky?
Okay.
About 15 minutes, Mary.
Okay, so I would like to, and I can do this in either order, whether you have some questions for us, and then I'd open it up to the other committee members to ask some questions. So why don't we do that first? Why don't we have any committee members who would have any questions for Bob and Buzz? Vicky?
I would just like to know with your experience in the last year and currently, how you feel if the candidate pool is tight. And because we've been hearing that, and we're a little concerned we're going to have trouble getting people.
Well, I'll answer it pretty matter-of-factly. Yes, the candidate pools are drying up. And as an example, we used to get 40 or 50. We're probably getting 20 to 25. Now, that doesn't mean the quality is not there. You could get 40 people and 20 of them, you're dismissive of the applications because they just, so I think I'd answer it as saying the numbers who respond are more limited today than they were 2 years ago. But we are finding that good candidates are rising to the top, and we're getting good candidates. But don't be alarmed. I know we've told people that was only 20. And by the way, I can tell you that towns that are paying $200,000 are getting 20 applications. And you probably saw it around you. There's a number of communities that were out, high-profile communities that are paying over $200,000, and they get 20 candidates. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't find anybody really decent, and they went out again. Anyway, that's a whole story. But the answer to your question, yes, it's more difficult. In our opinion, at this point, doesn't really affect the quality of candidate that we're looking at.
Okay. I think
Paul's hand was up. Sorry. Can I just one quick question on top of that? That said, do you think that it's worthy to go out of the typical town administrator, town manager pool and maybe look for other people that might be interested? Or have you done that, and who have you gone to?
We have done that. We have done that. We have no problems, and we've been successful with finance directors, for instance, in bigger communities that may want to step into the TA role. And most of you probably know, although you have an interim finance director, I see, but finance directors really have their finger on a lot of the pulse in town, because they see the budget, they know the detail, the intricacies of the detail. Now they need to learn some other skills, obviously, but we've been successful. We placed a finance person in Plainville, who was subsequently left, but she was there for a good 6 years, and she had a finance background. We've seen planners, and Buzz, I'm trying to think of, we've had planners with a strong planning background get into our finals, mm-hmm. and interviewed very well. But the appointing authority in that case didn't select them, but they interviewed well. So in answer to your question, yes. By the way, we're not eliminating the private sector. We had somebody from the university system, UMass Dartmouth, who was she was in charge of a huge administrative role there. And she was transferring her skills to the TA. She got to the finals in 2 of our towns, and she just recently landed as a TA. So in answer to the question, yeah, we're open to that. We think, frankly, we need to be. We just need to be.
Good. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Other questions? I thought Paul's hand had been up before, but might be wrong.
Oh, sure, I'll ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
do you have a database of people you know that are looking for jobs? And if so, you go through those and bring them to us, try to recruit from what you know is available out there?
Yeah, I'll answer that two ways, Paul. By the way, your name's synonymous and famous at the MMA. You know that. We know of you, and you're well respected. But to your question, we have about 1,600 in our database. Now that goes back for more than a few years, and a lot of those people have landed. But we use it. One example, a community on the South Shore, we recruited an individual from Sherborn, Vermont, who was on our list because we did the Sherborn search about 8 or 10 years ago. And we knew that he was from Massachusetts, and we knew that person was very good. And we called him and asked if he was thinking about moving back to Massachusetts because his wife's from Massachusetts. And he said, I'd really think about it. And he came down here and he got the job. So Paul, to answer your question, we always keep those active. We will not, I'll tell you this, and Alan makes it clear and Buzz agrees with me, we will not recruit from people we placed. We just won't do that. That's not fair to the client at the time, whether it was 3 years ago or 5 years ago. Now, if they call us, we will take the call, but we will not call them. And we just won't do that. The only other thing I'll mention, Paul, you mentioned about other people in searches. We're careful about that too, because we want a person who's committed to Sherborn. We don't want a person who's just looking for a job. And there are a lot, you've looked around, there are a lot of openings right now. So you're going to get people who are going to apply to 4 or 5 different places. Does that mean they're committed to Sherborn? It seems to me like they're looking for a job. And that doesn't mean we're dismissive of them, but we would rather focus on somebody who is really interested in your community. And ideally, that person is applying to one position, and that's yours, because that's what they want. But having said that, that won't eliminate others, because there are talented people. As Buzz always tells me, Bob, a community has 3 finalists, they can only hire 1. Right. So there are 2 other good ones there. So
I think Eric had his hand up at one point. Eric, did you?
I didn't, but I can always ask a question.
I thought I saw your hand go up.
But nonetheless, I'll ask a question. So I guess how familiar are you with the of the available pool people? There's a little bit of a circuit. You start to see if you've done a few placings here and there. You've seen the same names pop up here and there. How familiar are they with their backgrounds and skill set? I mean, everyone has a resume, and everyone's going to get a good reference. They just are, no matter what you've done. But then there's the other side of the story. I guess how familiar are you with the other side of the story? The actual, the networking out there and the actual reasons people are moving.
Bob, let me
Go
take
for
that,
that.
Eric. Years ago, I was president of the MMA, also president of the Managers Association, and then before I retired, I was chairman of the Future Managers Committee for the MMMA, and in fact, still on it, and they allow me to be on it in the merit status. So, we're plugged in to kind of the talent, the next talent wave, and like any fraternity or sorority, we're a close group. So we know, unfortunately, a lot about candidates who are, in the MMMA. We know sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some stuff that is very unfortunate, you really don't want to know. Other things, that you're happy you know them because they're doing so well. So, besides just doing a Google search, Bob and I have known some of these people since they were maybe admin assistants someplace. And if we don't know them, we certainly know people that know them or that have worked with them. And, so that's, I think, hopefully that answers your question. We just know, we know, and if they're from out of state, we can poke around to sort of get the story behind the story on them. If they're
I'll give you one
another
instance of that, Eric.
state.
When we did Bloomfield, Connecticut, it's a minority majority population. They stressed to us that they would like a person of color because that's their community. And ultimately, the bottom line is we went through the recruitment and we recruited the assistant city manager out of Fort Lauderdale to come up to Bloomfield, Connecticut. He wanted to come east. And his boss, you talk about references, how do we know? His boss was the president of the ICMA.
Hmm.
So he gave us a pretty good recommendation for this guy. And we relayed that to the council in Bloomfield, and they said, that's good by us.
Good. If it's okay with Mary and with Vicky, I'd like to ask one other question.
Sure.
How flexible you are with the scope. So we'll create a scope, we'll do a contract, we'll do whatever. And we may change our mind. We may say, you know what, we didn't want to do this. I'm sure, there'll be change orders and, compensation accordingly. But what flexibility do you have if we say, like, we weren't going to do this more extensive background, but now we decided we do want to do it because of the 4 or 5 we have narrowed it down to,
Yep.
or whatever else, or, extend, how flexible are you with kind of, some changes in the scope as we go along?
The simple answer is we work for you.
Okay.
We work for the town. It's not our contract, it's a contract between us. And whatever you folks need, our mantra is this needs to be successful for both of us.
Mhm.
And I will say this, we haven't had anybody that I'm aware of, Buzz, in the 6 years you and I have been doing it, that has failed. They left some of the positions that we placed, but they did it on their own. And not because it wasn't the right, and you'll hear this word from everybody, the right fit for the community. We think we identified that, and that worked. And that person decided to move on to usually a better position. So,
if I may, the fit is a key word here. We work hard to get a group of candidates that will have that will kind of, well, I say punch all the buttons and can do the job. And then it's really the screening committee and ultimately the select board, to feel comfortable and make sure you get somebody that has the right fit. And then if something goes wrong, we have a year guarantee, that will come back at no cost to you folks at our own cost and redo the search. And, knock on wood, we haven't had that kind of problem.
Yep.
And I like to think it's because we do a lot of work up front and work with you folks to define, the ideal candidate and work hard to find that person.
Okay. Thank you.
Mary, if I could make one comment, because I did watch one of your meetings.
Sure.
And I saw Jeff make some comments. I saw George make some comments. And particularly, George, I'm referring to you now about Carlisle. They called us and asked us to apply there. And that's a small community, as you know, 4,000 or 5,000 people. They called us and asked us if we'd apply, and we did. And if you would have seen the request for proposals, you probably would have taken a deep breath. Because quite frankly, they did not know what they wanted. They wanted us to come in and hire an interim for a year, do a search for an interim for a year. They have a retiring town administrator who we know, Buzz and I know. They wanted us to do an interim for a year. And that individual who's retiring is staying till June. And this was back in December or January. We said, why don't we just go out and get you a permanent TA? And there's some overlap with your current TA. And for some reason, they couldn't grasp that. So we talked, we were the only ones interviewed, and we talked, and Alan said to us, to Buzz and I, if you guys want it, that's okay, but we think they're going down the wrong direction. And you guys, we just got notice that Carver wants us to do the search. Alan withdrew us from that search. He says, you know what, we're gonna go to Carver, we're gonna be busy there. Let's, and it wouldn't be fair to them because they were gonna be demanding a lot of time.
So, do you have any questions for us? And would you like to make any kind of closing statement? Because we're down to about a couple of minutes here left.
Okay. The only question, Buzz, I think I have is refining the committee's role. I think that's going to be important as you move forward, whether it's us or not, or anybody else. That's going to be important for the consultant to hear. And to Eric's point, we're very flexible one way or the other, but it's important for the consultant to know coming in as to
Right.
what the role is. And as I said, we work with a number of screening committees and they take different roles. And we're fine with any role, but you need to think about that.
Okay.
And the second thing is the timing, which we've outlined. It's 60 to 90 days, depending on the interactions, that type of thing. Is that something that's important to you, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. We'd
Okay.
like to move forward as quickly as possible. And are you available as soon as, given the 60 to 90 days as the parameters of the search, are you available? I mean, it's not tomorrow maybe, but
Right.
are you available
Right.
now? Or is
Well,
that?
as I mentioned, we've got Carver, who is submitting all of their applications to us
Mhm.
tomorrow morning, I guess.
Yeah.
Somerset, all their applications are due next Monday.
Okay.
After that, we're clear. We don't have another one in our belt.
Okay.
I apologize. We're doing an HR search for Bloomfield, for a director of HR for Bloomfield, Connecticut. They invited us back, actually. I think they were probably happy with the manager we brought in. But that's it. So
Okay.
in answer to your question, Mary, you would be the third community that we have on the books, and that's it.
Okay.
That's good
But,
to hear.
but to your point, if you want us to start the interviews with the committee, that's how we start. Yeah, we can start that as soon as
Anytime.
possible. That's something we would do by phone. So the short answer is we're prepared to start the engagement as soon as the contract can be signed.
Okay, that's good to know.
So I'll turn it back
Anybody
to you,
else?
Vicky.
This is great questions and great answers. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate the invite, and you got a terrific place. You're going to be
Thank you.
fine.
Thank you.
Don't lose sleep over it. You're
Right.
going to be fine. You'll get somebody that's going to be good for you.
And
Super.
we would love to have the engagement. We'd love to
Thank
work with
you.
you folks.
We'll let you know soon enough. This isn't going to go on for a long period of time.
Thank you so much, and have a good night. I know you've
Thank
got
you. You
another
too.
interview.
Thank
Thank
you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you.
Bye now.
Right.
Did he say the Carlisle town administrator was retiring? Did I hear that
Tim
right?
Goddard?
It sounded
Yeah.
like in June.
I'm
Yeah,
still
I-
here. Tim Goddard is there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
Tim
worked with him. I worked with him years ago. He was a good
Good
guy.
guy.
Yeah,
Tim's
he was
a good
absolutely.
guy. We've known him
Yeah.
for years, and anyway, we said let Tim help with the transition, but
Yeah.
anyway, I think they took our advice and they're doing that now. I know
Oh, that's
Bernie got the birthday engagement. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll leave you.
That's good. No, I liked him. I worked well with him years ago.
I worked with him too.
So very different from the first one. I'm
Yes.
assuming everybody felt the same way.
Yeah, this was,
I will hold my perspective until everybody kind of gives, Jen's waiting for us, correct?
Yes.
He's in the
Does
waiting room.
everybody want to take a minute break or we want to go
Yes.
right into the next one? Okay, I'll give you,
Yes.
Jeff, would you mind letting Jen know we'll be with
Yeah,
her
sure.
at
Yeah.
maybe 8:08? All right, thank you. Hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Sorry we were a little late.
No, thanks for having me. I know you have a long,
Onto
I know you have a long night.
No, that's okay. Thank you for changing the time too. We appreciate that.
No problem.
My name is Vicki Rellis. I'm Chair of the Selection Committee, and joining me tonight will be Jeff Waldron. Jeff is the Vice Chair of the committee, but he's also a Select Board member. Also have Mary Wolf, who is a moderator for the town and has been very involved with the town from Finance Committee to Advisory Committee and many other things. But she's just, she's a good person to have as part of this group, as is everybody, but we're really happy about that. We have two other select board members. We have Paul Durenzis, and Paul has a lot of legal background, obviously, that he's bringing to the table. Eric Johnson is with us as well. We have Bill Seymour, who's on the Board of Assessors, Carol D'Souza, who is on many boards in town, Courtney Eck, who's on the board Conservation Board, and then George Fisk, who has actually had the job of TA a couple of times in the town. So he's our go-to for, is this true or not?
Great.
So the way we're going to structure this tonight is we're going to do, I'm going to be asking you some questions, and we'll have some questions in addition to the ones that we have outlined. At the end, people will be asking you additional questions, and we like to go through it. But the first thing we want to do is get a little bit of an opening statement from you, find out a little bit about who you are, your background. Thank you for sending your overview to us. We have that as part of our original package. And we just want to hear from you, what you're bringing to the table for us and how you can help us.
Great. Well, thank you again for having me. My name is Jennifer Thompson, and I'm a retired town administrator. I finished up last June as the town administrator in Plainville. I was there for 6 years. Prior to that, I was the assistant town manager in what was the town of Framingham next door. It's now a city. I also served as the chief financial officer for the Barnstable Sheriff's Office. And in total, I think I have, before that, I was in other municipal positions. I worked my way up right out of college from an entry-level position through the ranks. And I was in municipal government for a total of 24 years. So I semi-retired in June. I'm laughing because I've been really busy since I retired, which is a good thing. And have been doing quite a bit of consulting work. My background is pretty strong in human resources and finance. So lately I've been spending a lot of time on CARES, FEMA, and ARPA work. As you know, I am assisting Sherborn with some of that. And also I do provide coaching and assistance to other town managers and am providing, I would say, minimal assistance to your acting town administrator, because she's doing a fantastic job and really doesn't need that much help.
Yeah, she's honestly a superstar. We know that.
So in terms of what I bring to the table, I would say, like I said, my background is heavy in finance, but it's also very heavy in human resources. So, I know the two firms that you interviewed before I was here tonight. They're both wonderful. I've used them both, incredibly professional, both Bernie and Alan. And actually Alan hired me in Plainville. That's so funny that how things come around, right? So I think no matter which direction the town of Sherborn goes in, I think you're in good hands. They're consummate professionals. But my understanding of what you're looking for, just based on your meetings that I went back and looked at, and just kind of being involved in the town, because I'm already working with you on a few things, is that you might also want to consider someone a little bit smaller, not one of the larger firms, who might have more of an intimate relationship with Sherborn and the committee, and really kind of hone in and get someone very specific to lead you into the next decade at least, right? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I would say, unlike the larger firms that you just interviewed before me, I haven't done 20 town manager searches in the last, 5 years, because I just finished being a town manager last June. I have done a few. I did my replacement, which was interesting and worked out really well. He's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I think that was probably my most important one, because I wanted to leave things in a good place. So that was really important for me. And the fact that the board felt comfortable with me assisting with that was a really good thing for me. I was on the search committee for the first town manager in Framingham a long, long time ago. and really filled an administrative role there. So I at least learned the mechanics at that point. But since that time, I have recruited assistant town managers, police chiefs, fire chiefs. I was on the regional search committee for our school superintendent at King Philip, as well as the business manager. And I was on the search committee for, we regionalized our dispatch, much like you're looking to do. So I was on the search committee for our first 911 director as well. And again, you know, chief assessors and treasure collectors and police chiefs, fire chiefs, DPW directors, I've done them all over the years. So that's my background. It is a little bit different than the folks that you interviewed before me. I would say the only other thing that is a little bit different is I feel a little closer to the position having just left. I still have a lot of really good networking and connection with existing town managers and town administrators, which I think is important because I think a lot of times the candidate that you're looking for may not be looking for a job at the moment. They may already have a job, but they just might end up being the right fit for Sherborn.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That was very thorough. One of the things we've talked about is if you look at who we are, we're a small rural town. What do you think are the types of qualities that we should look for, or that somebody should have in order to be, you know, part of management of a small town like ours?
Well, I think that's a great question because I had the benefit of going from a really large city like Framingham to a very small rural community of Plainville, which is about 9,000 residents. And you know, it was certainly an adjustment, but I think when you go to a smaller town, you have to make sure that you're attracting a candidate who's comfortable wearing a lot of hats. You know, much like Sherborn, I was the acting HR director, the ADA, compliance manager, the purchasing director, at one point, the technology director. So I was fortunate, I think, because I had been an assistant town manager that played a lot of those roles, that the transition went very well, but that's not always the case when folks are moving from larger to smaller and vice versa. So I think you need to make sure you pick someone with a personality that can handle that, can multitask, is comfortable working with, you know, wearing many hats. There's not a lot of people to delegate to in Sherborn, right? Your staff is really small, and appropriately so. Appropriately so. And I also think you need to find someone who's very comfortable working with boards and committees. So what I've seen of Sherborn is you have a very robust group of volunteers that are very active in your government, which is wonderful. So I think you need to make sure you're choosing a town administrator who will maximize that and work with those folks. I mean, there's a lot of dedicated people that I've already met in the past few months that, you know, have worked on your master plan or serving on committees like this. It's just, it's a nice group of people to work with, but you want to make sure you have someone with those interpersonal skills that can work with a diverse group of folks, I would say.
Okay. That said, what are the attributes of Sherborn that would attract somebody to work here?
Well, I can tell you if I was looking for a town administrator job, which I am not, I would certainly look at Sherborn. I think you have an excellent reputation in terms of how you treat your employees. That's something that as town administrators, we always look for. We want to make sure we're going somewhere that, you know, we're spending the majority of our time there. You really become invested in the community. So I think town administrators look at how they'll be treated. And also they will look at the financial stability of the town. Sherborn is in really good shape financially. I think you've made a lot of good decisions over the years in terms of keeping your finances stable. I also think they will look at your department heads, which are incredibly strong in Sherborn as well. You have a great senior management team. Again, I just happen to be a little bit more familiar with them because of, you know, what I've been doing the last few months, but that's a very attractive quality for a manager coming in, to have that type of senior staff underneath them that will help them lead the town. I think it's a beautiful town. I think you have a lot of wonderful things on the horizon. You have a good master plan. You have a lot of those qualities that do find, I think town administrators will find attractive. I think your challenge will be the saturation of the market right now. There's just a lot of openings. Unfortunately, it's hard to recruit anyone in the municipal side, but especially town administrators right now.
We've heard that, and it's a concern for sure. And as being a concern, are there things that you would do, maybe go outside? How would you counteract that type candidate?
Well, I mean, for us, we will do what we would normally do, but I think we are going to have to do a little bit more than just the standard. So, we have a database of all the town administrators in New England, not just Massachusetts. So the advertisement and the recruitment package will go out to everyone who's currently serving in a town manager or town administrator role. But I do think you might want to, and we'll do the national, there's an ICMA that a lot of time folks, even though they might not, even though you're not interested in doing a big nationwide search, in terms of New England, there are a lot of folks that are serving as town administrators in other areas of the country that would love to kind of relocate back to where they grew up or where they went to college. So we'll post it on ICMA as well. But I think, I think it's okay to look a little beyond just your typical municipal town administrators. We have seen recently some folks coming out of the military that are serving in town administrator roles, and to much success, the ones that I've seen recently doing a really good job. I think there's folks that are coming out of the private sector that have decided they've either served on finance committees or boards of selectmen, then moved into that municipal field. So they may not have been doing it for 20 years, but they've been doing it, for 5 or 10, but also have a really solid private sector experience. Some of them are attorneys, some of them are accountants. So I think you just want to make sure you're not limiting yourself. So you want to make as big of a reach as you can. And ultimately, it really becomes about you selling Sherborn, right? Because it's really about attracting a candidate just because it's so competitive right now.
Yeah.
I think that's the important piece.
So as far as the process goes and where that fits in the process, just walk us through the scope you would do for helping us find somebody.
Sure. So I think the first thing we would do is, if you need it, and I did go back and look at, I don't think your last meeting was online yet. When I looked, it might be up today. The first thing we would normally do is look at your job description, but it sounds like you've already started to do that as a committee. So we would help you with that only as much as you needed to. If you've already kind of established how you want to structure that, if you want to make any changes. I also know it's in the bylaw, so you have to kind of look at that, what you can change and what you can't. And then we would also do a salary comp for you, but it looks like you've started to do that already. I think in one of your last meetings, you kind of had some of those comps up on the screen. So we would just help with that if you needed it, but it sounds like you have a pretty solid head start on both of those things. So that's really the first task, is kind of establishing the job description. And then we would move to that recruitment piece. I think we would do a pretty solid community profile. I'd like to change it a little bit. I think, many folks are used to that kind of cookie cutter one that they see from the bigger firms. So we would really kind of tailor it and specialize it a little bit more, and make it different on purpose. I think we want to stand out. That's the whole point. If folks are looking at 10 different recruitment packages from the same firms, they're going to do the same thing that I did. You're going to go to the last page and you're not going to really pay attention. So I think if we could structure that just a little bit differently to make people take a second look, I think that's important. And that's a marketing piece, right? We're marketing Sherborn. I think at one of your meetings you talked about, I think Selectman Durensis talked about a brochure that you had that was really beautiful, and you would pass it out to folks. It sounds like you might have some background in that, Vicki, so I don't think you would necessarily need our help designing it, but we certainly could if you needed us to. But I think that's a nice approach that you had discussed that I think would be really good. So I think collecting all that information, getting a nice recruitment package, then going that broad reach of reaching everyone that we possibly could, I'd recommend you put them out, you put it out for 30 days, you collect resumes for 30 days, and then we would get to the screening and selection. I don't know if you want me to keep going or stop.
Yeah, no, that's good. How much would you get involved with the screening, the collection, the actual, the interview process after that?
So it's certainly as much or as little as you would like. I think, what I've seen done in the past is we would screen all of them. So we would go through all the resumes, and then we would provide you with a matrix of everyone, including, with a matrix that shows the qualifications, so that you can look at all the candidates and see which qualifications they make on one master sheet. Plus you'd have all the resumes. Then what's next is really dependent upon you as a committee. Do you want to interview everyone? Do you want to interview just the folks that meet the minimum qualifications, which is what I think you should do, but we'll get to that. Or if you have a really big, surge of applications, do you want us to do phone interviews first and kind of whittle those down to maybe, 10 or 12? So that will depend a little bit on how the committee wants to proceed. We can do it either way. And it'll also depend, I think, on how many resumes and applications you get. Then from that point, we'll do, extensive reference checks on those folks that make it to your level. So when you're looking at them, you have a pretty comprehensive reference check in front of you as well. Not a background investigation, just references. And then you'll make your recommendations to the select board. It's usually 3 to 5. 3 is kind of the magic number, but
Right.
Sometimes you can get a strong 4th. So again,
We actually, we did that. We went from 3 to 4 and it worked out well.
yeah,
You never know who's gonna make it to the end, yeah. Yeah,
3 is usually where you target, but once in a while, you can get someone who's a real, you can get a tie for your top 4, and it's hard to kind of pick, so you just go with the 4. And again, that's something I think the committee would make the final decision on in terms of who you want to move forward. Then when, so we'll take care of all the scheduling for you and get everybody scheduled. You won't have to really deal with the administrative details of that. And then you'll make your recommendations to the select board. We'll also schedule all of that for you. At that point, there's a choice. You can have us do a full background on all the candidates, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Or you can wait until you're ready to make an offer, and then you do a real full background. We use a retired police chief that would do it for us to do a full background check before an actual offer is solidified. And then the last piece, I don't think you'll need it in Sherborn, but some municipalities do need help in terms of negotiating a contract, but you have a great town council, so I don't think you'll need me for that.
how many people work with you on this?
So for this particular project, you'll mostly have me. If you need any graphic work, I do have a graphic person, but I'll be the dedicated person on this. I'll use, like I said, a retired police chief that we have on staff as a per diem for the background. I have some administrative help, but that'll be pretty minor.
Okay.
You'll mostly be stuck with me.
Okay. I think what I'll do now is open it up to the group and see if anyone has questions. Anybody have questions? Mary?
I do. I'm wondering how many TA searches has your firm done, and how many of them have resulted in hires?
1. No, so our firm doesn't do a lot of TA searches. This is a little bit unique for us because of our relationship with Sherborn, and I think the need to do a kind of a more intimate search. Most of our work is on outreach and HR and policy, but it's I've done them personally, but I've only just joined the firm since August. So I would say my one successful one was finding my successor, but other than that, that's it.
Anybody else? Eric?
And more or less, I think you answered it in your dialogue, but just flexibility and scope, like we're going to get a contract with you and the contract's going to say do X, Y, and Z. But, being, 9 volunteers here, we're likely to change our mind at some point. And, we pay for the services under T&M, of course, for services that are changed, but how flexible can you be and to kind of shift on the fly?
Yeah, very flexible. We structure our contracts a little bit different. I think. I mean, I think the other two firms that you interviewed, when I got quotes from them, I think they were lump sum. We're not. We're hourly. We only bill you for the hours that are worked. And if you use us less because the committee is more involved and handles some of those things that we talked about, you won't end up paying as much. But if things change and you need us more or less, it's very flexible. It's just an hourly charge. I do put a not to exceed on there just because towns usually prefer it.
What's the hourly charge?
The hourly charge is $160 an hour. And I think you're not to exceed, I think we put around 8,800 maybe. I think I have it, yeah. And again, that's a number that can change if, you know, that I think that was pretty much all in, you know, just kind of estimated the hours that you might need.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Mary has her
I have
hand
a
raised
second
up
question.
before.
Oh, you did. Sorry, Mary, I didn't even see that.
That's okay. I'm wondering what you see as the length of time from signing the contract to hire.
Well, you already hit the ground running, which is great. I mean, you're very organized. You already have everything ready to go. I think you've kind of set up the schedule where you may meet on Monday. So for me, if you made a decision, I don't know if you're looking to make a decision tonight or next week. From that point, I think it would only take us a pretty short time to get everything advertised once you finalize the position description. So 3 months, I think, would be ideal. I think we want the resumes out for a month. And we might be able to squeeze it a little bit, but I know you're super busy. You're coming up on town meeting. So for me, the majority of my time will be dedicated to Sherborn in this contract, as well as the other contracts we have. I'm also pretty fortunate that I live close by, so that's a nice little caveat if I do need to be in town. I'm only a few towns away. So, you know, if we could move that quicker, we can, but I think your resumes are going to be out for 30 days. I mean, 3 months is ambitious, but I think we could do it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else have a question? Well, this is great. Do you have questions for us?
No, I would say, you know, like I said, I think you're in great shape no matter what you decide. I think the hardest decision will be whether you want to go with a larger firm or kind of a smaller, tailored, intimate type of a relationship. But regardless of how you decide, I've already fallen in love with Sherborn and all of your staff, so I'll be here to help no matter what.
What you did, Diane, you ruined it for us.
and honestly, I have a wonderful relationship with both Bernie and Alan, so you know, any sort of help that they need, if you go in that direction, that's fine as well. I guess my only question is, do you know when you'll make a decision? Have you decided that yet?
No, but
Okay.
it won't be long. We're trying to make this part of it short so that we can get going on everything else. Because we
Great.
know it's just it might be longer than we want because of the pool that's out there is minimized, but we'll see. So hopefully we can get this part done quickly.
Great.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
time and your input, and thank you for helping us. What you're
Nice
doing
to see
now
you
for us.
all.
Good to meet you.
You too. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, Jennifer.
Good night.
Good night.
So at this point, how do we move forward? Do we talk about it now or write up our perspectives and share them with everyone, or what's the best way to do this? I have my own feelings, but I want to hear what you all are thinking. Do you think this is, go ahead, Eric?
Yeah, I suggest a dialogue right now, you know, to just converse on, you know, what we think. You know, we did have a dialogue, I think, on the first one because there was a gap there between, you know, when the next one's up the schedule and so on like that. And I mean, I'll be ready to vote. It depends what the thing is. I suggest, like, you know, one firm per member and one vote each, and then see what the tally comes up to, unless people want to do something different.
The only thing I'd add is I would move that we disqualify the first candidate. I don't, maybe people won't vote, but they didn't really seem interested.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to help out, and
yeah,
it's obvious he would help, but we wouldn't get the attention that we need.
right.
So yes.
If someone wants to vote for him, you can let someone vote for him. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being over picky, but I mean, if someone feels strongly, it's a democracy.
Bill, sorry.
Just as the person least familiar with open meeting type stuff, is what we're talking about now is part of the open meeting. It's available to everybody, right?
Right.
Correct.
Being
I'm just-
recorded.
I mean, it does make it a little bit awkward to talk about, any perceived shortcomings of people who are well-known in the town and working in the town apparently. So that I find that a little unusual and perhaps a reason to, I don't know, circulate something that's not as open, but.
You can't.
It still has to be
Yeah.
discussed in public.
Yeah.
Yeah, George,
Could I suggest that, we've now heard three different candidates for this job. I've formulated, opinions about all three. I would like to hear others. And my guess is that there's a strong likelihood that we'll reach a consensus on what we want to do. I may be wrong, and that we could decide whether now or later. I mean, if we were able to take a vote this evening, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it, but I guess it really depends on how others feel and, how they reflect on the three candidates. But so I just seems to me it's a good time for us to have a conversation. If we feel we really haven't reached a conclusion in our own minds, that's fine. We can carry it on to another time. But I'm not having any difficulty making up my mind.
no, I agree with you. I'm not either. Eric?
I'm just saying that, to Bill's concern, we have to discuss an open meeting, and that's fine. You can say what you simply want to say, what you're comfortable saying. And that's just, the nature of the open meetings. If you're uncomfortable, saying your favorites, whatever, we could do what we did before. We could just do I recommend a 1 vote per person. It gets emailed to Vicky, not to the rest of the group. And at the next meeting, just tallies the votes. And heck, you can almost even authorize her to initiate a contract, actually, come with a draft contract based on, if there's a clear winner.
We could do that.
Yeah. Just if there's concern about, open and discussing people's pros and cons and things like that. I will make one statement. I think almost all three, to be honest. I think, like I said, the first one kind of just bowed out, just, gracefully, was a kind of gracefully bowing out the time. But certainly the last two will fulfill our needs and do what we need to do with scopes and stuff like that, and administer this and administer the interviews and blah, 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 blah. So I feel confident, confident in that direction. So I'm willing to speak complimentary in that, but obviously I think like any one of us, we're going to vote for one of them. That's all.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to suggest that we take the three that we saw tonight, that we prioritize them and tell each other right now who they would put as number 1, number 2, or number 3. That leaves are not eliminating automatically the first one, although I agree that they were not fulfilling our needs, but people won't vote for them then. And then we'll see where people stand on the last two by their priorities. And I think that I'm ready to do that and say I would put this number 1, number 2, number 3.
Are you making a motion?
Oh, yes, I just made a motion, didn't I now? But I wasn't writing it down.
No, you could just say I
I make a motion and I'll be writing it in the minutes.
Recorded. And
Does
I'm
this need to be a
recording
motion?
it, Carol.
To prioritize right now, just see where we are on a straw vote at this point in time for the 3 candidates for consultants.
Yeah, I don't need a vote. We just.
Yeah.
We just vote. Okay,
Just-
sorry
just
about that.
swap,
Okay.
Carol, just
that's
tell
fine.
us who your options are.
Okay.
Okay, I would go with MRI, Jen Thompson, and then the number 1, the Paradigm.
Okay,
If I may just jump in,
Eric?
just because that wasn't a full thing I was meant to go. And I'm not looking to contradict anyone. I guess we could rank them, but we're going to rank the third one. That's all. Never mind. I was going to suggest we just vote for one, but let's rank them. Because when you rank them, you inevitably have like an unnecessary, third place there, but okay.
All right. Then Eric, you need to tell me first, second, and third.
Are you tallying, Vicky?
I am.
Okay,
All
good.
right. Capital Solutions, MRI, and then Paradigm.
Capital Solutions. Oh, that's Jen. Okay.
And,
Okay, sorry. Okay, Jeff?
yeah, I'll make it easy. I vote the same sequence as Eric.
Okay.
Hey, can I intervene for a second? I'd like
Yeah.
to jump in because I think we're still in discussion point.
Yes.
I guess I would like to ask Diane, actually, this point I meant to actually do before. You've been working with Capital Solutions actually in assistance with administration of the town. I'd like to ask you your impressions of how they've been doing.
I think she's great. She's always there, no matter when I call her. I've talked to her at night, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, if I have a question that something just comes up, and she's been great to work with. She really has.
Yeah.
And I think when you ask like Deb Seffring, the finance director, and even Dan Sessional, who's been working with her lately for the opera, they're going to say the same thing. She's very bright, very, very bright. And
I
she's
think
met
it's
a lot of the players now in Sherborn, so she's got a little bit of it in.
Thanks. for
Especially
that.
when someone's actually working with us, it's important to have that
Right.
information.
I will give you my first, second, and third, but I do want to say something. After listening to everybody and then going through this with the police chief, the things that hit me square like right in the middle of my forehead was the fact of what MRI brought to the table in terms of, and they put it in their contract, all this paper on my desk, the ideal candidate, profile and challenge. And I think out of everything, that's probably one of the biggest things we need to do. And the fact that they spend a lot of time on that is very impressive to me. So they are my first, Jen is my second, and CPA is my third.
I mean, can I give us a point of discussion on that as well? I agree with you in the profile. That's important, even though the pool is kind of going to be the same 20 people applying, right, to some degree. Maybe not that there. I do want to say that I was impressed with having a retired police chief doing the background check. Because like I've said before, and like I've alluded to in every meeting we've had up until now, there's a resume. There's the references, any person can get 3 good references, but then there's the underlying story. And I think having a thorough background check is even more critical than having the profile. I have personally seen town, professional staff that have been terminated by one community, recommended weeks later by another community. And I just think it'd be nice to avoid that. So I appreciate the background check.
Don't disagree with you on that one.
Except all 3 were going to have professional searches done. They offered that.
Right.
By police
Paul?
chiefs?
Yeah.
I don't
Sorry,
think.
Paul, did you want to give us your?
Oh, to me, it's a no-brainer, MRI. And the reason for that is they have the contacts and they have the ability to recruit, and they know what they're doing, and I like them. They just seem like a group that I think would be very helpful to me. The second, I know I'll get some blowback on this, but I think the Bernie Lynch group, because they have the contacts, and I think in this tight market, it works the other way around, where we have to convince somebody to come to Sherborn. And so I want somebody who's done town administrator searches and has the contacts and has the credibility with the candidates, who could get them to not only to apply to Sherborn, but to take the job in Sherborn.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
I was very impressed with Jennifer and think she would be great, but I am swayed by the fact that I think MRI is a more prestigious firm and might be in a better position to attract candidates. So my vote is MRI, Capital, and Bernie.
Community Paradigm. Thank you. George?
MRI is my first choice, and Capital Solutions second, Paradigm third.
Okay. Courtney?
I'm kind of torn on this because I think there's advantages and disadvantages to going with, either direction in terms of, the size of the firm and what they could offer us. But I would say that Jen would be my top choice because of her insider knowledge that she already has within Sherborn. And then MRI, and like Eric said, I don't think we're gonna make a bad choice here. I think it would work out either way.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
I would vote for MRI first because I like their depth. I think the fact that they're a larger firm is kind of irrelevant because we're going to be dealing with the Bob and Buzz, and they're two people. So, they are what they are. I think if they probably have the flexibility and the experience to kind of spin on a dime if they have to, and I think they have, a large stable of contacts that they're going to be able to go with. My second choice would be Jennifer, because, she seemed like she's done the job, and that would be, an advantage. I'm actually swayed against having somebody who's currently working in the town, just because, I don't know, it just seems to me a little bit less professional or whatever. I don't know. It's sort of hard to put into words, but and then I think that Eric is correct about the third group that they're bowing out gracefully, and we should let them.
Yeah, you did a great job. Okay. That said, we have MRI with 6 first place votes and Jen with 3. So MRI is the overwhelming winner on that one. So moving forward, do we just say we go with MRI and start the process?
Yeah,
Yes.
we could, I would like to suggest we even like briefly just touch on, have they submitted a scope or whatever? But I just want to make
Yes,
sure.
I sent it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Only thing I would say is I would be in favor of, it's not that much money, of going with their full scope, not the, what do they call
Yeah, I
it?
agree.
I would agree with that. Sarah.
Yeah,
agree.
I would as
Abbreviated
well.
one.
Don't
Yeah.
even start with the
When
small.
when I first talked to Alan Gould about it, he brought up, he said, maybe you'd only be interested in our assistance package and so forth. And I thought maybe there was an impact there in terms of their time available, but it seemed clear to
Doesn't
me
sound like it,
tonight
right?
that they do, they're about to have a big opening and we can fill it. And yes, if they can do the full job, I think that would be worth it.
I do too. Okay, then. So I will move forward and begin the process of putting a contract together and getting their scope defined more so that we have that. And Mary, would you mind working with me on that?
Sure.
Okay.
Do we need
Jeff,
to vote on
whether
on
we
this
do?
now, or
Okay.
we just
Do
good
we?
to go?
We probably should take a vote if that's, we're making a decision. I think that way we have recorded a vote.
Okay.
Yep.
When you
So
say,
although, yeah,
I move that we hire MRI. Somebody help me with that motion.
well, hire them to be a search consultant for the town administrator hiring.
that's good.
You actually more specifically say, move forward with the expanded scope as submitted.
Yeah. Not the
Second.
assistance package or whatever, not that one.
Right.
Second,
I'll second
you.
Courtney's motion.
all in favor, Eric,
Aye.
Vicky, I, Jeff,
All right,
Bill,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Okay, let's have it. We are affirmed. Motion is opposed. Well, I
excellent.
want to thank all of you. I thought that was terrific. We got some great information from everybody, and I think our decision process was good as well. Like I said, certainly Eric and a few of you have been through this more than I have, but the police chief search taught me a lot, and I think that we did a great job condensing everything and getting the important factors in front of us and making good decisions. So thank you for your time and effort on that part.
Can I add one thing, Vicky, which is, none of them mentioned it, but one of the things I loved most about the police chief search was when we made them respond to 7 written questions.
Yeah,
I would like to have that be in the process because it makes them, it's easy to send your resume because you've already produced it.
yeah, a couple of them said something about helping us with the essay question.
Essays,
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't hear that, but I think
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah,
Oh, I
they
agree with
did.
you. That was tremendous.
Yeah, I
made
think
a
that's
huge
really
difference 'cause it
valuable.
really was almost as valuable as the interviews, I thought, because you
I
got
agree.
some other thing. We got some answers that were 10, 12 pages long.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I agree.
When I
Yes.
talked to Alan Gould on the phone at
Yeah.
MRI, he talked about that, and he actually said that one of the benefits of it is not just the answers, but how well they express their answers. He says it
Yes,
gives you a
the
chance
writing
to
ability.
writing,
Absolutely.
you know, the
Right.
writing skills are important in that job.
I know you're a former English teacher in earlier life, my dear.
Right. And a technical writer and a middle
And I
life,
know that
so.
too. Yeah, Cognitive.
Okay, so we'll move
Question
forward.
about- Sorry to
Sorry.
interrupt. Vicky.
That's okay, go ahead.
Question about the next step. So Vicky and Mary are going to work on the contract, developing a contract to offer to MRI.
Yes,
And
And I
then-
assume we get town council help with that,
Yes.
right? Because I'm in no,
Yeah.
have no skills there.
I'm not sure who it'll be, but you can reach out to Chris Petrini, but
Yeah.
it might be Chris Brown, but I'm not sure.
oh, the other thing I wanted to bring up before we adjourned is I spoke to Chris Brown, particularly about the job description, and that we don't have to change it based on some things or what's in the TA in the bylaw. But if we come up with expectations or a list of things that are important that we want them to pay attention to as part of their job, we can put that in the contract. So there are ways to be able to do that without actually changing the bylaw or the job description. And town council said that happens all the time. So just keep that in the back of our mind. Okay.
'Cause that's a
there's-
timing thing. Even if it does change, it's not going to change till the 26th of April.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
Okay.
if there's
I'm just-
no further
I'm
business.
trying to get
we'll-
our next steps. How
Our
will
ne-
we find out about the next meeting? In other words, are we waiting till after advisory to schedule to find out if you all need the next Monday, or are we going to meet next Monday? What's happening?
I don't know, do you think we need to go ahead, Eric?
I
Eric?
suggest you can go ahead, you get this contract with whatever, who are we going with? MRI, sorry. Get the contract going MRI, and that might be 2 weeks. And then MRI attends and we start right in with the job description and even potentially advertisement 2 weeks from now. That's what I suggest. And they can attend.
That's fine. So we do 2 weeks from now, which is the 28th.
I think
No,
that's
that's next week.
That would
No, that's
be-
April. April
Yeah.
4th.
something.
Yeah. Particularly because George is away also.
Yeah,
And
no, that works
may-
out perfectly.
We may roll over from Saturday. I hope not, but we may.
So we'll do April 4th for the next meeting, and the time will be 7 as usual instead of 6:30. And hopefully they will meet with us, and I'll put out an agenda quickly after, as soon as we find out, so everybody knows what we're doing. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Paul, second?
Paul moved and Jeff second?
No, Mary moved and Paul second.
Sorry, I couldn't see.
That's okay. All voting, Eric,
Aye.
Vicky, I, Jeff,
Hi.
Bill,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Thank you very much. We're adjourned until the 4th. Thank you very much.
Eric,
George, have a safe trip.
stay on for a minute, Eric.
Thank you very much.